Fierce fighting for Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte continues in Libya, where revolutionary forces claim they've seized the convention centre now, the main base of the colonel's loyalists. For over 2 days, in fact, Libya's interim rulers have been waging one of the biggest assaults yet on the most important remaining stronghold of the ousted leader. Revolutionary forces claim they control most of the town that's been under siege for 3 weeks now. Libya's interim leaders say failure to take Sirte is the only thing keeping them from formally declaring liberation and scheduling elections. So, to discuss the situation there and more generally in Libya, let's talk now to the Asia Times correspondent Pepe Escobar. Pepe, very good evening to you. Thanks for being on RT International.
Good evening.
Do you think this latest assault will see Libya's transitional forces take Sirte from Gaddafi control? Is it just a matter of hours, days now?
Well, we've been seeing the latest assault for the past 3 or 4 weeks. This is probably the 25th latest assault. In my view, the problem is this is the cluster bombing of R2P, responsibility to protect, which was theoretically the reason for NATO's humanitarian intervention in Libya. So if the good guys are being attacked by Gaddafi forces, R2P applies. But if the bad guys are ensconced in Sirte, for instance, and we don't care if there are thousands of civilians in Sirte as well, R2P does not apply. So in terms of hypocrisy, this beats anything else in the market.
Well, a lot of the news wires, news agencies saying that an awful lot of civilians did stay in there, a lot of escape, but there are a lot of locals there. The media's been focusing primarily, hasn't it, on the actions of the progress of the revolutionary forces, etc., in their battle to take Sirte. But, what about the human costs, the deaths of innocent civilians? There are going to be some there. It does seem to be largely ignored, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because the only coverage that you see in Western mainstream media, corporate media, is about the advances of the so-called pro-revolutionary forces. This is not a revolution. This is a civil war which was adopted by the NATO powers and the US. So in terms of the civilian population, Sirte is a city big. There are more than 100,000 living in Sirte. If 10,000 left or 20,000, there's still most of the civilian population is still there. They were bombed by NATO. NATO bombed at least half of the city, including what they said was Gaddafi installations all across town. So obviously these part bombs, they do not recognize fleeing civilians, in fact. So there's absolutely no body count of the actual civilian population. So the hypocrisy is cosmic, in fact. And everybody is assuming, okay, so if Sirte falls within the next few hours or days, then the problems are all solved and we can set up a government in Tripoli and the TNC will be in peace with the Islamists who are actually controlling Tripoli militarily, and the people in Tripolitania are going to accept the people in Cyrenaica in eastern Libya as their rulers. No, this is not going to happen. The war is beginning.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, Sirte really isn't the last bastion of opposition here, is it? This is going to go on some while yet.
Absolutely, Kevin. And the fact is, have you seen anybody anywhere talking about what's going on in the southern desert? Of course not, because nobody knows what's going on in the borders with Algeria and in the borders with Niger. And this is where Gaddafi's resistance is being organized. I talked to a lot of people who came back from Libya recently in Italy, especially Italian correspondents. And their best local information is that Gaddafi, since February, took truckloads of gold to the southern desert, and this gold obviously will be distributed among tribes and among the Tuaregs and among the further resistance. So we are at the intermediate period where they are more or less organizing the resistance, and after the so-called government is established in Tripoli, then you wait for the real action. I mean, Iraq 2003 style.
We've only got about 15 seconds, Pepe. If you can you put a figure on how long you think NATO's going to be there?
Forever. That's what they said. And that's what they've been saying for the past few weeks. And in fact, the last time they said is, as long as there is not a functioning government in Tripoli, we will be there. This is not going to happen. Thus, ergo, war forever. Again.